Hey y'all, welcome to Blood Education.
I am Brando.
And I'm Mia, and this is the podcast where we teach you about people you should know or teach you more about people you already know about. So,
What we talk about today, girl?
I got y'all. Today is my time. We're going to be talking about the Watts Truce of 1992. So, I picked this one because I really wanted to do something like positive while everything about the story isn't like, shits and giggles, roses, or whatever the fuck the people say. It is a really positive story on like what could happen if we decided to all kind of put our differences aside and make sure that we are taking care of one another.
So Watts as in
You already know
Cali,
LA,
like
absolutely.
hood,
Okay,
hood
LA,
LA,
Compton, you feel me?
Compton. Okay.
Neighbors, and we're gonna talk about that a little
hmm
bit. But
I've never been to
absolutely,
Cali.
you've
You
never been
know?
to Cali,
No,
like
I
at
have.
all.
Like no. I mean, I stopped there once, like on a plane, but like it was like a layover. But I didn't. I've never actually like
It's actually
explored
beautiful.
Cali.
I've never
You
been
know.
to like that
I
area
really
of
want to go to
California,
like the
but
dunes, like where Issa, like. But I heard
I'm
that's
from
like,
that way. It's
you
like
know, there's
I
shaming.
just want a
There's
photo
shame people on Twitter now for
for
going there.
pictures.
They're like, why y'all need to stop going to LA and like going to see Issa's like the dunes. Like it's okay. Like move on. And I was like,
That sounds like some hater energy. I'm
I'm
not
actually
gonna even
going
lie to
this summer
y'all.
for the
Like I
first
was literally
time.
about to say because
Maybe I'll just keep it in my
I
camera
was
roll.
supposed to go, but like
I'm going this summer. But anyways,
if
Watts.
I
Okay, so
go,
Watts, Compton. Okay,
yes. So
okay. We in the hood now, baby.
we shut up. Okay, so just the basis of this, we have to know like the two most important things, which are, gangs exist. Okay.
Okay.
Within these gangs, we have two majors. We all know the Bloods and the Crips, right?
Okay.
The Bloods are reds, Crips are blue. It's the whole thing with the letters,
Sorry.
you know what I'm saying? You don't say one thing if you're part of one group, whatever. And obviously at this particular time, especially in the 90s, it is like booming. All right.
Yeah.
Like there is just violence everywhere at this point. But what we're going to see happen is there's going to be like a series of events that are going to kind of get us to the Watch Truth that are going to set us up to be like, all right, it's time. The time for games is out. I don't want to get into it too quick, but I do want to talk about like the leading up to it. So, what we're going to see happen is basically we are going to have multiple. I was about to call it gun violence, but that's not it. Like, what do you call it? Like a shootout? I don't know. What's the vernacular
Shootout.
for it?
Hey, shootout. Hey, shootout. Hey,
Drive-bys. That's literally what I'm thinking about
Okay.
in my head.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna have multiple drive-bys in different
Okay.
communities that are gonna lead a lot of people to kind of being like, all right, these gangs were originally around kind of protecting us and making sure our neighborhoods were safe. And at this point, what we're seeing is that our people are being harmed, even though they are absolutely not involved in this whatsoever. So, like, again, drive-bys are happening, and in particular, we're going to see what's her name, Karen Toshima, and I'm gonna have to drop that in our description so
All
that
right.
you
Now
all
tell
can
me
look up
about
her.
Karen.
Karen Toshima. What happens with Karen? She's with her homies. She's going to UCLA. She's vibing, having a good time. They're on their way to the movies. She's buying her ticket, and back in the day. Well, still now sometimes their kiosks are outside, so you get your ticket and then you go into the movie theater.
Right.
Well, drive-by happens as little mama is getting her ticket, right?
Oh,
And
no,
she's
she got
killed.
shot. Oh.
Right. So,
Oh no.
big like standpoint of this is that she's a Japanese American. She's not a black person. She's not anybody that's Hispanic. So that is a super big deal and a big turning point as far as cop presence as it applies to like gang violence and things like that. All right, because they already knew this was motivated by the gangs. They just weren't really sure like who initiated it, who started to be, why it happened the way it happened, whatever.
Right.
But they did know that Karen was murdered,
Yeah,
and
I want to
again that
look
she was
her up.
Japanese American. Yeah, look her up. It's very
Yeah. Sorry.
engaging story. You're fine. But her dad ends up actually turning into an advocate, and he's kind of like, "What are we going to do about this?" Because my daughter was a college student. She was doing the things she was supposed to do, and she still lost her life. So the result of this is going to be we're going to see um, a lot of mass hysteria and people being like, "Oh my God, this could be my child." You know what I mean? Like, what do we do? How do we stop this? And in turn, obviously, again, we're going to see that increase in police presence.
It's interesting that
Here we go.
No. Rest in peace, Karen. I'm so sorry, girl. But like, it's interesting that like when you have another minority that is historically adjacent to whiteness.
Yep. Yeah.
That now it's a problem.
Yeah.
Now it's a problem. No, we got to do something about this. We got to do something about it.
When
But
people in Compton and Watts have been literally dying for like years at this point.
Oh,
For
boy.
literal years at this
boy,
point.
boy.
Okay? Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I mean, you also even have to juxtapose like how these gangs are kind of being like criminalized and punished. Um, like even with like certain charges, like the racketeering charges, different things like that. You know,
These
like
RICO
shoot,
charges.
I know because you know that originally started like to shut down the mob, but during this time, it's going to transition, and the focus is going to be on like
Yep.
these black gangs because they are way more dangerous than the organized mob.
Right.
You know, of course,
Which,
but, you know,
please.
I mean,
But I
so-
mean, there is a lot to be said about the transition of gangs being to protect community to moving to this act of violence and like protecting their neighborhood and holding it down. You know what I'm saying? There is a lot to be said about that, but I think from the outside perspective, there's a lot that gets lost in translation for a lot of other people
Right,
where
of
they
course.
don't really understand those connections that are built and their influence in the community. Because I know a lot of OGs that have done more for my community back home than any type of representative
True.
ever has. You know what I'm saying? And that's just the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it takes
Yeah. No, I totally get it. It's just like I think that even though like you have to look at media too because like they put this story of Karen like all over national
everywhere.
news,
She was
and
everywhere.
like even now like when you look at the disparity of you know black women being missing or being murdered versus like white women, you know,
Yeah.
you still have that syndrome of course, you know, Karen wasn't like she wasn't a white woman, but
Right,
and, you know,
yeah.
it's still that sense
Adjacent.
of okay,
Yeah.
like she has that whiteness or that like
and just the
passing.
profile of it too, because I mean she was a young college student and it was like, oh, she's never done
Right.
anything wrong, you know.
Exactly.
So we see this murder of Karen happen, and this is where we're going to get our first attempt at something that could be similar to the Watts truce, and it's going to be called Stop the Killing. This is going to be Luis Abdul Farrakhan who's going to come in and try to lead it, and essentially a lot of people actually
like the same one that still be like, wait, is he alive still?
I don't know, and I don't want to lie to the people. You're going to have to Google it.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right. But he comes in and he's like, I'm going to host a meeting. I'm going to get all of these Negroes in here. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about how we're going to stop the killing because we have to stop the killing. And they really, for real, turn out and go listen to dude. And they're like, you know what?
Yeah.
He's making some points, but they're not high enough to actually stop the violence. Okay. They're not cutting it.
Okay.
All right. So then we have another peace treaty. Okay. Because what happens with the stop the killing is like for about 2 days,
they're like, all right, we're gonna chill.
Yeah, they stop the killing, and then somebody, you know, step on somebody's J's, they piss them off, whatever,
and
you know, on their corner. Yeah, and then it was dead. Okay, so they were like,
so it didn't really
actually,
work. Got it.
You feel me?
Got
All
it.
right. So we keep going. We have this reverend who shows up, and he's like, all right, what do I have to do to get y'all to calm the hell down? Mm-hmm. He comes out, does the same thing, speaks to him, yada, 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 get it handled, right? Again, a few moments of peace, and they're like, you know what? Maybe we should stop killing our people.
Okay.
And then, I don't know what happened. Again? They chose violence. I don't know. I just feel like one day somebody woke up and was like, actually, that peace stuff, I'm really not with it. Actually.
I think when it comes to that, you have to like really get people unified and get them to all see the bigger picture. And if you can't, then, I mean, of course, something like that is going to be temporary. And then, I mean, that kind of goes back to what we talked about in another episode where we talked about segregation. Like, it's more so like, okay, like when all these black people were together, there was really more of a sense of community. But then things just kind of became divisive. Also, during this time, you have wasn't LA being like flooded with crack during this time? During this era and stuff like that. So. Yeah, like
LA, New York.
You know, so I mean, that's also going to be a huge dent on the black community. Then the fact that black people are just criminalized a lot more. Like, you know, well, that started after Reconstruction with the 13th Amendment, but we'll talk about that another time.
We don't have time for that today. He always stopped me some stuff he ain't got time about.
But I know. I'm sorry.
All right, but do y'all want to know the event that actually got the Bloods and Crips to come together and create a truce?
I do.
Do you think you have a vision in mind? Thinking about the time period, what do you think it was?
Are we like 80s, 90s?
We're in the 90s.
We're in the 90s.
Early 90s.
Oh, I was alive in the 90s.
I wasn't alive.
Early 90s, Cali. What was happening during that time? Okay, so O.J. Simpson was happening.
Wasn't O.J. For sure.
What's the other man? Oh, um,
Yeah, say it.
Rodney King.
Say it.
Yeah, only in America. Sorry.
Why would you do? Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
I'm sorry.
Why would you do that? You're childish.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. I'm not. All I know about Rodney King was he got beat by the cops. Like,
okay.
Is that like it's very surface level?
That is very surface level, but there's honestly not.
My mom was talking about it. She's like, they beat him.
There's truthfully not a lot to the background of the story that you need to know, to be honest. So essentially what happens with Rodney King is he is actually he's pulled over for driving under the influence of alcohol, right? And instead of being like, oh, y'all are just gonna take me to jail, he goes on a high speed chase, which is like real gangsta of him, to be honest. I ain't gonna lie, he shouldn't have been driving under the influence, but like a high speed chase is kind of gangsta.
Yeah,
I can't.
I wonder what he was drinking.
Right, but not important. So, obviously, they chase him on this high speed chase, and they eventually pull him over, where they drag him out of the car, and he is beaten. So, the key point of the Rodney King case is that somebody that was actually at a hotel that was off of the highway that he was pulled over on is recording from the balcony, and they take this recording and they send it to the news for free. And they're like, "Yo, y'all need to see what's going on." And as we know, Rodney King then, for that time period, goes viral, right? He's on every news station. Everybody is watching this. And they're like, oh my God, because this is the first time they've actually seen police brutality be recorded, right? Because it's been going on forever. And we're at this point nowadays, we're desensitized almost. But at that time, they were like, oh my God. Like a lot of Black people were like, we have seen these things happen, but this is the first time other people have seen these things happen.
So now they feel like it's valid. They feel like they have a voice now. We have evidence.
And it's like, we've been saying these things and nobody's been listening because we can't prove it until this man records on this balcony, right? So again, records, sends it to the news, and Rodney King this whole story takes the world by storm.
Okay.
And this obviously gets back to, well, it doesn't have to get back because this happens in LA, but Bloods and the Crips are like, you know what? They're killing us, and we killing each other too.
Right.
It's time for us to calm down. So that's what we get out of that, the watch truce.
Okay.
Yeah, they literally come together. It's like 2-3 days after the Rodney King incident actually like makes news. It's like April 28th, 1992. And they come together and they sit down, and there's actually a really great picture that we'll put in for you guys where we see like the heads of the Bloods and the Crips at that particular time, where they're like, they've come together in front of their little podium, they shaking hands, and they kind of state why they're doing this. And they say that it's because, we are, again, killing each other, and they're killing us. And if we all killing us, nobody's going to be here for us. Nobody's going to be here to represent us. And they said they're doing this to combat police brutality, and they want to reduce the crime in their own neighborhoods because that's not why gangs were originated, right? They come up with this. It's a real dope, like, little image. We'll drop that in there for y'all too, where they're like shaking hands. They got the different colors, and even out of this, they actually drop a rap album.
Oh, so Snoop Dogg involved in this?
Snoop Dogg is not like directly involved in this, but they do drop an album, and there's like one song on there that like actually make them a little bit of money. Like they really, and they, how
song?
I actually didn't listen to it. I was scared I wasn't gonna like it, and then it was gonna ruin the watch truce for me, because I really like the story. But anyway. So they sell this song. It actually goes, pretty viral, and they make a little bit of bread off of it. But I really love this because not only did they like come together and be like, we're doing this because of this, but they actually created a formal treaty. And it was actually molded after the Israeli and Egypt nuclear treaty.
Oh.
Right. Like it was after, it was modeled after that. And I thought that was really cool because you often don't see like very formal things like that within these type of neighborhoods, or within those type of particular subgroups, I should say. So I thought it was really dope that they actually took the time to create an actual treaty that they signed. Unfortunately, though, literally a few days after they signed this treaty, the Rodney King riots take off in LA. So they are very much overshadowed by the Rodney King riots. And if you don't know what that is, obviously there was a very difficult time in LA when they are rioting against the police in that particular community because they didn't feel like Rodney King was dealt his justice and things like that.
History really repeats itself.
Crazy. Yeah. But so that's what happens with the LA riots, Rodney King riots at that particular time. And they are very much overshadowed with what we see happen there. But they do actually hang on to their truce for quite some time. I believe it's almost almost 6 months. It's not that
I
long,
mean,
but for
that's
gang
that's
violence,
good for them.
you know what I mean? Like, and don't quote me on that. I'm gonna have to go back and check the specifics, but it is quite a long time. And they actually maintain this because, again, they do really believe in their um, agreement that they come up with. But
Yeah.
I wanted to pose a question for this particular one. So I talked about like the origin of gangs and how we've kind of seen them evolve into different things. And so my question is, do you think that gangs can still be purposeful with what we know about them now? So knowing what they originated as to protect Black communities and make sure that we're safe, protect us
Mhm.
against police brutality, and know that they have almost evolved into these into these groups that bring
Mhm.
harm to other Black people. Do you think that there's still potential for them to do what they originally set out to
It's
do?
a very loaded question because I think in theory and execution, yeah, like I mean, it would just have to be one of those things like where people, community leaders, kind of came together and made it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that gang really just kind of has a negative connotation now when
Right.
you think about it, and when you associate it with, and particularly with people of color. That it's going to be something that is not really embraced by people overall, and
Right.
especially by the government. Also, I want to say that, shoot, like even if we look at the prerequisite of the Bloods and the Crips, like these gangs, like yeah, the Black Panther Party that was labeled as a gang, but
Sure.
they did a lot of positive things for the Black community, and they were
Yeah.
actually strengthening this community. And I think that it got to a point where it was very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to see Black people unified in this country,
Woo.
and it is. And so, I think that certain labels are kind of seen as like a threat, if you
Okay.
will. So,
So,
um,
do you think by like changing the terminology, it could be a different thing?
um, maybe, but yeah, I think so too. But I also am not really about respectability politics either,
Her.
though. So I don't believe
I don't give a
anything
good
needs to be
goddamn.
changed. I
Yeah.
think that you could just still be a blood or a crip and still care about your community and like do that. It doesn't always have to be a negative connotation associated with it. I think there is one
Absolutely.
associated
Yeah.
because the media has
Absolutely.
made it that way, but I um, I think that it could be like changed. And like, I mean, Bloods and Crips, they still go to community service. They
Oh,
still do all that
absolutely.
stuff,
Yeah,
but
for
that stuff is
sure.
not the stuff
And be in church.
that's not the stuff that's getting televised. So I
Yeah, for
think if you
sure.
really want to push that narrative, then we have to start telling our own narrative,
Yeah.
which is kind of like what we're doing on this podcast. We have to have those media outlets where we're telling our own stories, and then you have to have enough people that are really willing to listen to that story, and that helps to change the narrative of things. So
Yeah.
that's what I think.
My harebrained scheme is that gangs cannot go back to their original concept until we destroy the prison industrial complex.
Well, that's about that started with the passage of the 13th Amendment, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
going to outlaw slavery except for
As
as
punishment
punishment
for a
for a crime,
crime.
and then you start seeing Black people getting
Punished
incarcerated.
for crimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that and that's continued
They did a
for
real quick turnaround with that.
yeah,
I'm
like you're
not gonna
standing
get
on the
into that.
corner,
But
so you're
like
arrested. So yeah, so
like
those type
walking
of
on the
things.
sidewalk
Yeah,
with a white person.
yeah.
Arrested.
So
Prison, jail.
yep,
What?
yep.
But yeah, that's my harebrained scheme, and I think it's because of the type of environment that's there and how you need that certain
Right.
type of protection when you go in. So you have to align yourself with something like that. And I mean, sometimes when you're really looking at things like that, you can like break down it's mainly just black and white or Hispanic, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that creates a lot of sense of security, especially for people that come from homes that are not necessarily full. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? They're looking for love and support in different ways, and a lot of gangs provide that for them.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
and not necessarily all the time in a bad way. They may be doing bad things, but that love is real. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yes.
um, but that was the Watch Truths. I really wanted to talk about this because I feel like we spend a lot of time talking about murder and a lot of different things. And while this wasn't all roses, again,
Yeah.
I think it's a really bright spot in the Black community and does show that we can come together and put all our differences aside when we want to.
I love
And
that.
I'll say, and my next story is very positive too. It's about Black people coming together. So I'm about to be spreading positivity. Period.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like, I don't know, maybe I'm a little pessimistic or a little dark, but
A little
I don't
bit.
know. I'm kind of attracted to like the darker periods of history because I feel like it's the taboo stuff that no one likes to talk about, but that's the stuff that you don't really want repeated
Yeah.
to happen. So like, I'm gonna tell you all about it.
Yeah.
All right. So stick with us,
And we got you. We're gonna
and
teach you
we
all the
got
things.
y'all all the things. I
The good
am
and the bad.
Brando,
I'm Mia.
not from the bando, since this was about like Compton and Watts and stuff. So I'm not from the bando today.
So
I mean, I'm
annoying.
wearing red. I don't want any problems. I don't want any smoke.
I got
just
free
like,
Huey on. I plan
I mean,
this
but
black.
I
It's
just
neutral.
well, I just like the color red, but I'm not in the game.
Anyway, I'm Mia. He's Brando.
All right, and we will catch you guys
We
next
out.
time.
Peace.
All right, bye. What up? What up? It's your boy Brando from the bando. Actually, I'm from the suburbs, not the bando, but that's okay. I'm here to say thanks for watching the Polaris Network on YouTube. For exclusive shows and premium content, subscribe to the Polaris Network on YouTube right now. Seriously, what are you doing? Go subscribe. Go do it right now.